All right, welcome everybody. This is Jimmy Yen and welcome to the Anything is Achievable Health Podcast. So today, I'm super excited to have a special guest with me, Ben O'Brien. Ben, your middle name is Latto, right? Am I saying that right?
Latto, yes, that's correct.
Latto, yeah, great. So Ben Latto O'Brien coming all the way from Perth, Australia to talk to us about how to integrate nutrition, diet, and also into your own life, and also in how he utilizes in his acupuncture practice. So Ben, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you for having me on, Jimmy. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, so I'm excited to have you on our show. And so Ben, can you introduce yourself, tell the audience a little bit about yourself?
Sure. I sort of fell into Chinese medicine and health. I'm from a very long line of actually Western medicine practitioners. So both my grandparents on my mother's side were medical doctors. 3 of my 4 uncles are medical doctors. And my mother was an osteopath for about 55 years. So I grew up around patients and around treating. This is very normal. My mum always had a home practice. She really raised us. And I was constantly seeing patients coming and going all day, every day. So it was quite normal to be in and around that. And actually that turned me away from it a little bit because I was so saturated with this whole nutrition, health, healing. I didn't take to it straight away. It took quite a long time, but obviously it was a bit ingrained in me, in my genes, and going through that process. So straight out of school, I actually did something completely different than the family trade. I went and became a panel beater and spray painter. And when I was younger and I was interested in working on cars and playing guitar and all that sort of thing, I didn't want anything to do with the family business at all. So I went and did a 4-year apprenticeship and became a panel beater and spray painter. And then as I got a little bit older, realized that wasn't really going to be a very good career for me because it's not a very health conscious thing and using a lot of poisons and it's not ideal as a long-term career. So I got into Chinese medicine by accident, and the story basically is that at the age of 26, I was diagnosed with a very serious heart condition. I have a genetic disease called Marfan syndrome, which is in my family, and it's a problem with connective tissue and not being able to make the main connective tissue in the body, which is a thing called collagen. So with people with my condition, that's part of the problem. It's the main problem really is that when we try and make collagen, we can't make it, it's not strong enough. And so we have a lot of sort of, symptom means a collection of, a syndrome means a collection of symptoms. So it's not one thing, it's multiple things. And one of the main issues is that all the collagen that surrounds your heart is very, very weak. And so this can be the fatal aspect of having this condition. So anyway, I was diagnosed with this condition and immediately had to go in for open heart surgery at 26, really having no symptoms at all. So this was a bit of a shock, as you can imagine. And so my life took a very different turn at that point. And so I went and had this procedure done. It was called a Bentall procedure, which is kind of ironic because I'm quite tall and my name's Ben, but that's actually how it's spelled. Bentall. It was a French surgeon that came up with this. And so basically what that means is you have complete replacement. You have an incision made from your throat to the bottom of your sternum. This is major open heart surgery, so this isn't keyhole stuff. They crack your sternum open. They've actually got to replace your aortic semilunar valve and your entire ascending aorta. So it was about 9 hours of theatre for me, and a lot of people don't actually survive that operation. But the issue, it wasn't a possibility to not have it done. It was you must have this done because you're not going to live for very long if you don't. So I was really between a rock and a hard place. I was like, have this procedure done, you might die, or don't have it done and you will definitely die. So I wasn't very thrilled with those choices. But anyway, I had to have this done. So at 26, I basically became a heart patient, and I was always very interested in playing guitar. Music was my life. So after I had this kind of horrific procedure that went really well, so they told me when I woke up in the intensive care unit, they said, we're very pleased with how it went. Everything's gone brilliantly. They make you move your arms and legs and make sure that your brain's working and all this sort of thing. And it all looked pretty good, but the problem was that I had a left hand that was like a cerebral palsy hand. So this became a claw. And I could move the arm, that was fine, but I couldn't move the hand. And so, and I had to say to them, okay, it's great, everything's gone well, but something's happened to you guys. What the hell is going on? And they were kind of like, oh my God, they missed it, right? So they missed it. So they freaked out quite a lot and thought, well, you know, it's obviously, it's probably brain damage or he's had a stroke or something's happened to him during this procedure. So they went and took me, and I had a whole lot of testing done. I had cervical and cranial MRIs. Everything came back inconclusive. So they basically said, well, we don't know what happened to you. Something's happened to you. We've managed to successfully replace the bits of your heart that need to be done, but you've had this side effect, and we don't know what to do, and we don't know what the cause is. So, as you know, if you can't get a diagnosis, it's very hard to know how to actually come up with a plan to help yourself. So I sat around very depressed. This is a big operation. It took about 2 years for me to recover, which is about how long it takes for all the anesthetic and everything to wear off. And during this time, I had a lot of investigations done to try and work out what had happened to me and how do I fix this problem. So I went back to neurologists. I went to my cardiothoracic surgeon. He didn't know. He sent me to a hand surgeon. The hand surgeon didn't know. He sent me to a neurologist, and this person didn't know either. And by now, it's spent a lot of money, and they did all the testing again, complete cervical and cranial MRIs. They did shock testing through the nerve to try to find if there's a break in the neuronal pathway. Everything was inconclusive. And so I was basically left with them saying, well, stop being a hypochondriac and get on with your life. You've had your life saved, and we don't know what's happened to your hand, so just get over it and move on. And that's not really what you wanted to hear at that point. So I still didn't have a working diagnosis. I didn't know what to do. I'd started going to chiros, I went to physios, I saw my mum, who was an osteopath of many, many years by this stage, but I had no working diagnosis, and that was very frustrating because I wasn't getting better. And the reason that it was such a problem with me with my hand is because I was an aspiring musician and I've always played guitar. So that was the end of that. I couldn't move the fingers properly, and you know, it was cold. I couldn't feel properly. There's a lot of numbness, so obviously there was some nerve trauma, and I didn't know what to do. And I tried lots of different things. Nothing had seemed to work. And I actually had a Chinese friend that came around who was also a guitar player, and he said to me, Ben, look, you know, you've tried all these different things, you haven't got a result. Why don't you go and try Chinese medicine, acupuncture? To which I replied, expletive, get out of my house. I wasn't open to that at this stage, and no one had suggested to me that this was the reasonable course of something to pursue. So my immediate reaction was, I don't want to know about it, right? That's just dumb, and it's not going to help me, and it's not going to work. And if it was reasonable, surely somebody with all these alphabet of letters after their names would have suggested, go and think about trying this. But anyway, I thought about it for a few days, and like many people that find Chinese medicine, I went, well, I don't know what else to do. I'll go and try it. I know it's not going to work. That was my mentality. I knew it was going to be a waste of time, but I didn't know what else to do. So I went and saw this guy, who's a guy called Lawrence Galeesh here in Perth. And Lawrence was also a lecturer at the only college that was teaching acupuncture at this stage. And, you know, he said to me, look, Ben, obviously this happened during the surgery. I don't know if I can help you or not, but we can try and see. And what I'm recommending that we do is a course of treatments. Okay, I want you to come in once a week for 8 weeks, and we'll work out whether, you know, you can actually get some benefit from this or not. And I said to him, no, I'm not doing that because this is not going to help me. I said, I'll give you one treatment, and if it helps me, I'm coming back. And if it doesn't help me, I'm not coming back. And he said, yeah, okay, that's fine, whatever, we'll do that.
Yeah.
So he took me into the room and, you know, started talking to me about yin and yang and blood and qi and all these things. I had no idea what he was talking about. I thought it was a bit weird, showing the tongue, take the pulse. And then he got me on the bench, he put some needles in and left me there for, you know, 25, 30 minutes, finished the treatment. walked me out to the reception, and he said to me, "I'll see you next week." And I said, "No, you won't, Lawrence. I'll decide that." And he said, "Yeah, okay, that's fine. Whatever, that's cool." So I got in my car, and I was living in a place called Fremantle, which is about 40 minutes away from this clinic. And I was driving an automatic car back to my house, and I could move the arm, and I could hold the bottom of the steering wheel with my left hand. And I remember on this drive having some sensation in the hand. And I was it took a while for my brain to understand that this was possible, because I'm like, I don't know what the hell this guy's done, but something is different in my hand, because it didn't feel like that an hour ago. I couldn't feel anything, and now I can move the fingers a little bit, and it feels a bit warm or whatever it was. And I remember getting back into my driveway, and I sat there for probably an hour, just feeling the steering wheel, going, wow, I've got sensation in this hand. And that's just, it just blew my mind that this guy had managed to do something that no one else could do. So I went back in, I called him up, and I said, book me in for 7 more. I'm coming in once a week. And every week I went back, and every week my hand got a little bit better and a little bit better and a little bit better, until, it went from a claw to actually being able to move the fingers. Now, I still have a bit of residual nerve damage, and maybe I always will, I don't know, but I can actually use the hand now.
Nice.
And so at this stage, I had no money either. So I'd paid for these 8 treatments. I'd seen some significant improvement. I wasn't going to go back to panel beating and spray painting. So I thought, well, maybe I should go and study this. I'll go and study this, and I'll learn how to continue to help my hand. That was my reason for getting into it. It wasn't about helping anyone else. I didn't care about that. It was about me and my journey to fix my hand so I could play guitar.
Wow.
And I guess after you go through about a year or two, then you kind of realize it's not just about you. And I thought, if I could learn this incredible modality, and I could help other people that nobody else could help, that's pretty awesome. And so that's the reason that I went and studied Chinese medicine. It was only for going on this journey to assist my hand.
Yeah. Wow, I've never heard that story. So thank you. That is a great story. So you pretty much understand exactly what your patients are feeling, because you went through the, you weren't open. Oh, what is this? What is Chinese medicine? It's a bunch of, voodoo medicine. That's what people here in the US may say. And so going in, not thinking that it's going to work, like thinking it's not going to work, right? I
knew it wasn't going to work. I was absolutely knew.
So that shows, and that's a great point, because, for acupuncture to work, for Chinese medicine to work, the patient doesn't have to believe it to work, because you went in there and saying it was not going to work, but it still worked. And so that shows us that Chinese medicine is not a bunch of hoo-ha energy, that people, it's actually physical medicine. It can actually change, your physiology. So I love that. And also the fact that you're like, oh man, if I don't get any relief, after one treatment, not everybody gets relief after the first treatment, but the fact that for the fact that you did, and you were able to continue it, then you were able to see the miraculous results from Chinese medicine. So it's very encouraging to other people who have never tried Chinese medicine to give it some time, because like you spent how many years going through the Western medicine route? How many years did you go?
It was
through
two and a half, about that.
Yeah. So you went through every single specialist, right?
Yep. Lots of.
And so, and so other patients who are in your same shoes, doesn't matter, you've gone through others, 20 specialists, and nobody's been able to help you. Nobody's been able to give you an answer. Doesn't mean that Chinese medicine won't work on you. Ben is a prime example that, if you just give it a try, you don't know what miracles could happen. So that's awesome. And then now let's transition to, you are huge into nutrition, right? I see your Facebook posts. You're always going to the farmer's market every week. So how did you start getting into nutrition?
Well, I guess I was brought up with that. My grandfather, that was a very well-known doctor, he practiced in London, in Reading, for about 60 years. He was really more of a nutritionist than a GP. He was a qualified GP, means a general practitioner. But he used a lot of medicinal teas, and he used nutrition mainly as his treatment protocols. So he learned a lot of the theories of nature cure in Germany. This was right before the Second World War. So, this sort of got passed down through the family, and nutrition was always a big thing. And I understood the importance of it. And, I actually, to be honest, I studied it again by accident. So when I started, I won't go through the whole story about the issues at the college, but I went to this college that's, I had to do a lot of training because they weren't offering the subject. So when I started doing acupuncture, they didn't actually have the units for me to continue the course. So I had to do 2 years in Perth, and then I had to move to Melbourne and do another 4 years and basically start again. Because I wasn't being offered, I could only do some of the sciences and the common units for all the degrees. It didn't matter if you were studying naturopathy or homeopathy or Chinese medicine or nutrition, you had to do the chemistry and the biology chemistry and the anatomy and so on and so forth. So because I wasn't being offered all the units in Perth, I was just doing the Western stuff without doing any of the Chinese medicine. So I got to actually, at the end of my second year of study, I was actually in the 4th year of the biosciences, having not done any of the first year of Chinese medicine. So I got to the end of 2 years, and I assumed, well, I can do another 2 years and then I'll be finished, right? Because that makes my 4 years. And so when I went to Melbourne, to actually have a campus that offered all the units, I said, hey, I'm from Perth, I've done 2 years, and I just want to do another 2 years and then I'll be finished my acupuncture course. And they said, no, that's not how it works. They said, you haven't done you can't do the high Chinese medicine stuff without doing the lower stuff. So you basically have to start again and do another 4 years from this point. And I was just like, oh my God, that's such a nightmare. But then when I looked at what I'd already done and I looked at the nutrition course, I realized that I'd sort of done 2/3 of a nutrition course because so many of the subjects were common. So I thought, okay, if I've got to do 6 years, I'm not going to be happy to do 6 years and finish with a 4-year acupuncture degree, but I will do 6 years and finish with a Bachelor of Health Science and Nutrition and a Bachelor of Health Science in Acupuncture. That sounded reasonable to me. So that's the reason why. And again, it worked out for the best because nutrition is just so incredibly powerful. But I certainly didn't plan on doing a double degree and taking that all on at the one time. And then once I got to the end, I was actually very lucky. I went and studied in China at the end of my acupuncture degree. And I got to go and study in the hospitals over there in the place called Nanning in Guangxi province. It's very south and very west. It's right on the border of Vietnam. So I did that. I did an internship for 6 weeks, and then got back to Perth, or got back to Melbourne actually is where I was, and started doing my clinical practice in acupuncture. And I realized pretty quickly that as good as Chinese medicine is, when nutrition is lacking, it's a real issue. So if you've got dietary related diseases and you're not addressing that, it doesn't really matter how good you are with needles or whatever, you're not going to help the patients long term because the diet's the thing that's causing the problem. And I didn't have enough time in an acupuncture consult to talk about all the dietary stuff that I wanted to talk about as well. But I realized that this was really important because it was a missing link for a lot of people. And even physicians don't understand nutrition terribly well, or really at all. I don't know what it's like in the States, but in Australia, there's about 2 units that they can do right at the end of their medical degree, and both these are electives. And that's all the nutrition they do. They do like 6 or 12 hours in their entire study, which is just unbelievable. Yeah.
So since nutrition is such important, which I agree, we do a lot of nutrition also in our clinic. I actually personally think nutrition is the permanent solution. Chinese medicine does help people get to a certain state, to a certain level of balance or function, but it's nutrition, their day-to-day nutrition is what sustains and maintains that result. Share with us a case where, in your practice, where nutrition, like someone you worked with and you just changed your nutrition along with, they're doing acupuncture, but you changed your nutrition. It was the nutrition that made the big difference. Share us a case about it. Yeah.
There's been a few of them, but the one that immediately comes to mind is there's a patient that, it was a male, he's probably about 64, very high cholesterol levels. And, Chinese medicine is okay at maintaining that, but he knew and I knew, we both knew that nutrition was the missing link here. And so just by getting him to tweak his diet a bit, and more, not even include a lot of stuff, but cut out things that were causing him the problem, that was really the way that he managed to basically halve his cholesterol levels in a very, very short amount of time. And I have all the blood work to show that. And even his GP had never seen that done in, like, it was 2 months, 8 weeks or something. And he managed to halve his cholesterol levels and bring down his triglycerides as well. And that was purely on the basis of just making nutritional changes. So that's the power of speaking to someone who understands this, and actually, if the patient's willing to do that and make the changes, they will see the results. And when I'm in clinic, I talk about nutrition in terms of the foundations of your house. Okay, you've got to have the foundation strong if you're going to build a solid house. So you can't just add bits and pieces at the top and think, well, your house is going to stand up for 20 years, because it isn't. So nutrition is the framework of the body, and that has to be right. And once that's right, then you can get a lot more benefit from herbs and acupuncture and different types of modalities. But I always think there's very few patients I've come across that couldn't benefit from nutrition in some way, shape or form. But that was the kind of the obvious one. So blood sugar problems, but this case with cholesterol. And actually, it was only after about 3 weeks that he was starting to see significant improvement in his blood chemistry. And for some people, if you're diligent and you actually understand how to do it, change can happen pretty quickly.
Yeah. And so you said like 3 weeks. So it's not like, oh, you eat healthy one day, everything improves. No, that's not how nutrition works. So let me ask you this. So nutrition, the word nutrition is I would say defined differently, at least here in the US. Like nutrition, when people say nutrition, they're mostly talking about supplementation, like supplements. Some of it includes diet, but it's almost like diet and nutrition are separated. Is that the same how it is in Perth?
No, I don't think so. I think that people are similar to thinking like that it is about supplements. Mm-hmm. But when I practice nutrition, I think that supplementing something, the term supplement is something, in my opinion, that you should take for 4 to 6 weeks and then have a break. It isn't something that you take forever. It's supplementing something that you're not getting from your diet. So if you're taking supplements that you're getting adequate amounts of in the diet, well then what the hell's the point? You're not going to get much benefit from it. So I think that understanding, and nutrition is such a big and complicated part of human health. And there's so many different theories about what works and what doesn't work. And then you go to Dr. Google and then you're even more confused, because there's just so much evidence out there and so many different theories about what to do. But I think that simplifying it is super important. And I think that teaching people to eat basic food, it's never the complex spices and having really complicated food. There's a reason that peasant food, right, it's super simple, is the food that you eat, that you go and work out in the fields for 8 hours in the sun, right? They're not eating fancy stuff with lots of sugars and sauces and glazes and that sort of thing. They're eating very simple, basic, staple food, salt of the earth type food. And that's what actually enhances your health and gives you long-term longevity.
That was a great analogy, because that's what happened like in China, there's a lot of farms in China. And so that was perfect. Yeah, they don't eat those fancy foods. They eat basic foods, and they're out in the fields, 8, 10, 12 hours a day, doing hard labor. So definitely they're proof that basic nutrition is healthier. Great. And so, let's say someone that is looking for to try acupuncture, and they're in the Perth area, and they want to do some nutrition, acupuncture, Chinese medicine, and so why would they choose you? Like, what would be the difference between your clinic and other clinics in Perth? Why would they want to choose you?
Well, I guess what makes my clinic a bit unique is that I have treatment plans for people. I don't see, when I studied, and for the first however many years in my practice, probably like 7 or 8, excuse me, it was really just about booking patients in from week to week and praying that they'd come back next week.
Yeah,
that isn't a good long-term plan for somebody who's got a 20-year condition, arthritis, or chronic gut problems or whatever. You need to have a structure in place. Yeah. There's got to be a system in place that they can actually follow, and they can go, okay, this is where I am now, and this is where I'm trying to get to, and these are the steps that I'm going to take to make that happen. Yeah. So I guess that's the difference between my clinic and the other clinics, is that really it's about building plans for people. First of all, getting them in, doing an initial exam, which is basically just about taking their full case history. I've got to work out whether I can actually help them or not. I don't suggest that we go forward with treatment if I don't think it's realistic that I'm actually going to have, a reasonably good chance of being able to help them. So if I decide with the patient in the initial exam that we're going to move forward, then we do a sequence of testing. So that usually is about 3 treatments over 1 week. And I'm just using acupuncture at that stage. And the reason that I'm doing that is because I want to see, how quickly, first of all, do they respond at all? And how fast or how slow do they respond? These are the 2 things that I'm looking for. And, once I get that information, depending on how they respond, then I'm in a position to go, okay, this is the data that we've collected. And now this is the plan that I'm going to move you forward for the next 4 weeks. And then at least you're at least going to have some sort of template to work from. Using acupuncture just by itself is useful, and not including herbs and nutrition and everything all at once, because if you start getting results, well, you don't know what's working. You've got no idea. Yeah. So that's why you simplify it, and you just, try one thing at a time. And usually people do need the nutrition, but I bring that in down the track. So that's really the procedure and the protocol of my clinic. Do the initial exam first, then do the testing, get the data, and then move forward with the treatment plan.
Wow, perfect. So if I can just summarize for the audience, so you have a step-by-step, approach to helping your patients, and each step is to determine, like the first step is to determine if you are able to help them or not. And exactly. If you determine that you think you can help them, you want to make sure by doing a little test treatments to confirm that. And you don't rely upon what we call here in the US the kitchen sink. You're not throwing the kitchen sink at every patient, like giving them everything all at once and hoping something sticks. You're actually doing it scientifically and determining what exactly, like cause and effect, what exactly caused that benefit, or if there is a side effect, what exactly caused that side effect. So you will know exactly what is going on, right? Yeah, perfect. So, and you also explained your process. That's the process of what every new patient goes through. So that is great. Well, Ben, what is there any last things you would like to say to the audience?
Look, I think that it's important to be open. My story is a bit different and unique, and I think that not everyone, to be honest and transparent, is going to get the result that I had with my hand. I think I was actually very lucky that I did get such a good result from a single treatment, because that doesn't always happen. And I think you've got to be a bit realistic about this. So I just feel very blessed that I did have that response, and that led me into this pathway about sort of following the family business, and more to the point, being able to help people that maybe no one else can help. So if you're struggling with some particular health aspect, I think it's important to understand that there are different ways of being able to treat the body. There's many ways that you can heal the body. And Western medicine is awesome at some things, like diagnostics and trauma medicine. I mean, they're better than anyone at that. But, for chronic conditions, it's more difficult there. And patients know that. If you don't want to take 15 drugs, that's not actually going to get you where you want to be. Well, you've got to think about, actually simplifying it and going through a process to try and help get you a result. And so I'm very interested in working with people that don't believe in Chinese medicine. I've got no problems with that at all, because I'm one of those. And B, other patients that have tried lots of different things and haven't got results. Because I was one of those as well. And I think that nothing gives me more pleasure than being able to give someone a result when they've gone and seen so many other people that couldn't help them. this is the bread and butter of what we do with Chinese medicine.
Yeah. So where can people find you, Ben?
So I've got a new clinic. I am in Subiaco in Perth, and I've been there for about 8 months now, and I've got a much bigger premise, and I'm trying to actually build this up to be eventually the biggest natural medicine centre in West Australia. So
nice.
Nutrition is a super important part of that, and I think that that's a missing link for lots of patients that don't really get the time to explain the importance of nutrition and how you actually can utilize that in your daily stuff. And it's not overly complicated. I mean, this is actually quite simple stuff. And again, it's about testing and learning what's right for the individual. And I think that's the power of what Chinese medicine and nutrition does, is the treatment is individualized. It's not a one size fits all. So, you know, 2 people with diabetes can have very different treatment protocols. 2 people with arthritis can have very different treatment protocols. And this is the process about when you work with a practitioner, their job is to work out what does this patient need as an individual, and how do I move them forward with their health? And that's what we excel at. That's what I love doing.
Great. So I will include Ben's website on the comments below. Ben, thank you for being on our show. Thank you for sharing with us it was a spectacular story. And we wish you all the best. And so if you are anywhere in Perth, Ben's clinic is the clinic that we refer our patients to. We get a lot of inquiries in our clinic at Achieve Integrative Health here in Austin, Texas. And anybody that lives around Perth area, we always send them to Ben's clinic. So Ben is the guy. Ben is your guy if you want some help in Perth. Ben, thank you for being on the show. And
pleasure. Thank you for having me, Jimmy. I appreciate it.
You're very welcome. And we'll look forward to future interviews.